I built an identity around survival and I called it freedom. I knew how to look confident while privately falling apart, and the version of me people celebrated the most was the version of me that was furthest from God. So, the version of me that people knew, I was very ambitious, nonchalant, egotistical, narcissist, butthole, uh, self-centered. That's just the kind of name a few. So, like I said, the version of me that people knew, I was in the LGBTQ lifestyle for 10 plus years. And I was introduced into that lifestyle while I was in the military, just through different experiences. I was a child that was molested between the ages of 3 and 4. So I had internalized a lot of anger, a lot of pain. I saw a lot of things as being young and just within my village, I'll say, that I internalized, not really knowing, and just some things that had happened throughout my life just really kind of put me in a state of anger. Um, it didn't the perversion didn't like manifest in my life as like being fast or promiscuity. It didn't really manifest that way. But it manifested in me finding identity in other things, meaning like a lot of my identity was founded in sports. So I'm a big sports head. um I love my teams, but I enjoy playing sports. So that was where I found the most of my identity in, along with the sexuality once I got a little bit older. So the lifestyle had me just in a lot of things. So I was married. I was in a same sex marriage, and of course, just different same sex relationships. And I thought that that was freedom because I was living out my truth or living in this world that I created for myself that I thought made me happy. But I just didn't realize until I kept going through the same cycles that that happiness really didn't seem like happiness. So through those 10 years of being in that lifestyle, um I was very much depressed, unfulfilled, broken, searching for healing, searching for fulfillment, searching for that love that I thought would take all the pain away that that I had experienced throughout life. Just thinking that a relationship could save me. I was a serial relationshiper. That's not a word, but that's what I called myself because I just found myself in on to the next in a lot of situations. And people might have saw something differently on the outside. Like they just saw this very ambitious entrepreneur that was going after everything and accomplishing a lot of things at the same time for herself. So people probably thought that I had it all together, but on the inside, I was drowning, very much drowning, and didn't know how to articulate that what that drowning was because I thought I had everything that I need. I smoked every day, smoked weed every day, everywhere where I went. I did a lot of dumb things around weed, not really understanding why I had such a hold on the things that I was doing, but yeah, drank a lot. There would be times where I could probably just take it too far. Um, but I just didn't realize that I was just numbing the pain. I didn't realize that it was just me running from something that I thought could just make me feel better. Or, after long, girl, I need a drink. Let's go get a drink. All of those things. And, my emotional condition underneath, like I said, I was just really an unfulfilled person, an unhealed person, a broken person on the inside. Somebody that needed love, wanted to show love, wanted to give love, but could do none of those things. And um externally, I look very confident. You wouldn't think that anything that I'm discussing right now was a part of what my makeup was. But internally, I was so exhausted. I was just so through. Like, I was just over it. And, you know, what nobody really saw was the emptiness, was the inner conflict, um, was me trying to fill a void, the emotional heaviness, the brokenness, the anxiety, the depression. I was so depressed when I was in a stage of having everything that I wrote on my list. Like, I had the car, I had the house, I had the girl, I had the money to go any and everywhere, do whatever excursion, buy a section at the club, pop the bottles, buy a pound of weed, smoking the best weed. Like, to others, hey, she's living her best life. Like, she's living a life that I want or that I might envy. And nobody could see what was truly going on the inside. And it was just a broken little girl that was just looking to be saved, and I didn't know where the saving was going to come from. I kept trying to become versions of myself that just really couldn't heal me. And I didn't realize until I got sick and I was in the hospital. And that's when my first encounter happened with God. And in my first encounter, being in a hospital, like, for, if you add up all the days, it's almost a month that I was in a hospital. And um in the hospital, the one night that I was by myself, I can just remember, because I was just having such a traumatic experience that night with the nurses. Like, I was so, just get me out of this place. And I had a catheter in my arm that was 13 centimeters long. And it was just for them to be able to pump antibiotics in my body because I needed so much. My body was just fighting itself, which I was just really under spiritual attack. And the enemy was trying to kill me. And I didn't know. I just thought, when they're like, we don't know what's going on with you. Like, I had salmonella, but salmonella that was out of my body, but it was just the adverse reactions to it being in my body for such a long time. And um that one night, I just remember crying out to God. And in my crying out, I just remember feeling his presence, but it wasn't enough. I wasn't at the place for me to turn and leave and follow Christ. But it was enough for me to start and, like, make sure that I was, like, from that time getting out, I watched church every Sunday. Like, I had a routine. Watch church at 10 and then watch Power. Sounds crazy, but that's God's honest truth. So that's the first encounter that I had with God. My second encounter happened when I um moved to Atlanta. My mom was praying and fasting for me. I didn't know. But through conversations, she kind of let me know where that she was praying for me, I'll say. And so she started sending me videos, and she's like, "Oh, these boys, they got this show on YouTube," and I'm just like, "Tina, you watching YouTube, you know?" And she sends me an episode. It's hardly initiated if you don't know. Tashawn and Ryan, they have no clue who I am, but their episodes was pivotal to me being where I am right now. So I remember her sending me one. The second one was Tiffany Montgomery. And I think this was the first time that she was on Harley Initiating in 2022. So this is June. And she talks about, like, I really can't remember the topic, but it hit me. And I remember her talking about her Covered by God. And so it was just like something in me was like, I want to go to this service. Didn't know didn't know what I was in store for. But I will say that God made sure everything happened the way that it needed to happen. And I get there, and mind you, I was a masculine presenting female, so I was a stud. And I get to the service. Service goes on. Covered by God. If you've never been, please go, because it's a powerful, powerful service. And I was saved at that service, and I left and I gave up and left literally everything at the altar. It might sound crazy, but I left everything at the altar. Reverend James Solomon was there. Pastor Bev Tucker was there. So if you know them or are familiar with them, they are going to walk you through the renunciation, the denouncing of the evil covenants that you have made with the kingdom of darkness that you're not even aware of. So like when I mean I literally left everything at the altar, I literally left everything at the altar. And I remember walking out, leaving, and I was just so swarmed. Like, I cried for a minute. Like, I cried all the way home, and that was a good little ride. And I remember my mom just telling me not to try to figure it out. Like, just sit in God's presence. And I went on my first fast on that July 1st. I was saved June 27th, 2024. I went on my first fast July 1st. And I have just lived a life of prayer and fasting, especially being undercover by God for a year. It was just a lot of prayer and fasting and a lot of reading the word. And that's where I was filled up with the change, leaving the desires, um, being able to walk away and going into my wilderness and just being convicted by in different areas as I was changing. And you know, the one thing that I made sure that I did was not try to change myself and not try to change where I was at that moment, because I couldn't picture who I am today. I couldn't picture that June 27th, 2024. Because I didn't know who Martika was. My identity was tied into my sexuality along with me being an athlete. Like, those two things was what I could tell you about myself. And that I was a barber. Like, I was an entrepreneur. Like, that's all I knew about myself. And those are the only things that I could really identify with. And outside of those things, so I stepped away from all of those things. So I stopped cutting hair. I stopped playing flag football, and I left the LGBTQ community, like, in a span of months. Different things happened at different times, but in less than a year, all of those things is what I left. And in the midst of that, I surrendered my desires. I picked up my cross every day. I did the most that I could to kill my flesh. And I think the hardest part, like when you're really seeking God, like encountering Him, I let His love mold me and put the broken pieces back together that I didn't know was such a broken person. But throughout just really following Christ, I just realized as I was walking that I was just picking up pieces and bringing pieces back to myself. And the struggle was just in finding that true obedience. But at the same time, it was a struggle because it hurt. Meaning, like, the things that I knew I had to give up. Like, flag football was very hard for me. might sound small to people, but it was very hard for me because I truly had identity in that. So that was a wrestle with me as far as my identity, because like I said, my identity was me being active, me being an athlete, me doing these things that I thought fulfilled me, and it did in a sense, but it was an idol. Like, it was something that in the midst of praying and fasting that God showed and revealed to me that it was an idol. So in the midst of him bringing these pieces back and him just shaping and molding me, I took my hands off and I let God do that. Because if I kept my hands in the pot, if I kept my hands with his hands, I was going to mess up who I am today. And I let him take these broken pieces and mold me into the woman of God that he already desired for me, that he already said I was in my mother's womb. And I realized I had to let go of old versions. And you don't realize that you're hurt in certain areas until you're faced with them. And going through certain things, I just made sure that I learned to live a repentive lifestyle. I learned to go to God in prayer. I learned to really surrender the things that's so hard for you to give up. When you surrender it to him and you say, Lord, you carry it, it's makes your life so much less weightier. Cause like everybody talks about dying to yourself, right? Everybody talks about the dying to yourself, but until it's actually time to let those parts of yourself go. And that was where I made sure that I took my hands off and I really truly gave it to God through different things. There'll possibly be a part two so that I can just kind of go more into detail, but I just want to give you a overall of what my walk looked like and coming out of the lifestyle and what my journey looks like on this day today. So, I think the main thing that I gained with giving my life to Christ was peace. Um, the peace that just surpassed, like, I think that verse speaks to me so much because it's so hard to explain the peace that you have when you really give your life to Christ all the way. Meaning that you're not trying to put your hand in the pot and hold on to things. When you truly just let it go and give it to him, it's just like a peace. Just a lot of inner healing. And finding my identity in Christ. Like, my identity was in so many other things. So reading the word and truly understanding who he designed me to be, who he needed me to be, who he told me I was, that shaped me truly giving it to him. That shaped the change that I made. And I realized freedom wasn't doing whatever I wanted, because that's what I thought it was. But freedom was finally feeling free from the things that were controlling me. So no, far from perfect. Let me state that in the first. Far from perfect, but I am transformed. And I'm transformed by the renewing of my mind. And no, this walk isn't perfect, but it's about living a surrendered lifestyle. And I know that my growth and my relationship has been because of the work that I have truly put in, meaning just living a consecrated life. Because when you've lived a life of chaos and just open to so many things, and you come to a place where all of those things are gone, you want to live consecrated. You want to stay consecrated. And what I mean by consecrated, I mean by fasting, praying, and reading your word and constantly seeking him. And that can look like journaling. That can look like you just really writing down, like, Lord, I might have had a bad day and I might wanted to call this person. But I thank you for your strength that you gave me on this day for me not to fall back into that. That's what that can look like. Choosing to have a relationship with God that you really just tell him it all. Because guess what? He already knows. And learning obedience, getting in a church where I really truly learned how to worship God. Um, I had already gained a lot of tools from being covered by God, but finally finding a church and just really learning to worship and come in agreement with what's in the atmosphere. Like just being in a prophetic house, just being around that. Um, that's where a lot of my breakthroughs came through, was just being in environments where I made sure that my spirit came into agreement with what was being spoken into the air. So it doesn't always have to look like people laying hands on you and you going through this massive deliverance. You do want to go through deliverance, but uh, coming into agreement when whoever is up preaching, or like whatever is being spoken into the atmosphere, coming into agreement that you're walking this thing out with him, that right there can go further than somebody laying hands on you. So I am still growing. I want you to know that. But I'm growing from a healed place. I'm growing from a place of being truly rooted in Christ. But like I said, I'm still growing, but I am not perfect, But I am no longer who I used to be. Far from it, honey. But I want to leave you with this. You don't have to stay the version of yourself that pain created, because Jesus transforms life, and mine is proof. And if this video just does the small thing of showing you that transformation is possible, that following Christ actually has rewards in it, and walking with him and sacrificing and truly being obedient, I just want you to know that God is going to meet you exactly where you are at. He met me on a YouTube and made sure that I was at a service and I was met with his love. So if you know anybody that is struggling to come out of the lifestyle, if anybody's just struggling in their walk with Christ, please like, share, subscribe, send this video to somebody. Let them know that, hey, I came across this girl and she walked out of it. I know you can do it too. And that's all I want you guys to know, is that you can do it too. Don't let what you see right in the mirror right now, don't let that be the determining factor that you don't follow Christ. Because who you look like today is not who you're going to look like tomorrow. And God cares more about your heart posture to him than what you look like. Throughout your walk, the convictions will grow, and you just let God change you. We can't do it ourselves. And that doesn't matter if you're gay, if you're straight, if you're walking out of fornication, if you're walking out from being a person that just finesse and finagle, all of those, God can change you if you let him take control. And that's all I wanted to share. I do think I might do a part 2. If anybody has any questions, please leave a comment of what more I can help you guys walk through, because there is love that God is waiting to give you. And like I said, like, share, subscribe. Please send this video to someone. Please know that what you have done is not too hard for God. Please know that nothing is too hard for him. So please, peace and blessings to everyone. And I appreciate you guys for listening to my testimony. Like I said, my name is Martika. Have a blessed day.